Hey, good morning, guys. So for today's notes, I decided to do the video a little differently. As opposed to me writing as we did the problems, I thought maybe just speaking to it and you seeing it in its entirety a little more clearly might make it a little more easier for us. So what we have to do now, like we looked at the double angle identities the first day, then we verified, and now we're actually going to solve. Okay, so now we have to use the identities to somehow be able to solve for x. But by now we know that we're not just solving for x, we're solving for, in this case, cosine x or sine x, right? Or maybe even a tangent x. So for number one here, we're given sine 2x, so that's a double angle, plus cosine x. Now we have to use methods of solving, whether that's factoring, which we'll do mainly here, taking the square root of both sides, things like that, could come into play here. So what you're looking for is the double angle, because that's what we're going to substitute out. So the sine 2x, I'm going to look over here on my identity sheet, and I'm going to plug in what it equals. 2 sine x cosine x. Now I have two terms, right? This is just one term, and this is a term. Well, both of these terms have a cosine, so I factored that out. I asked myself what was left, and what was left was 2 sine x plus 1. At this point, I now can set each one of my factors equal to 0 and solve, right? Where did I get negative 1/2? Well, I just subtracted 1, I divided by 2, and I got negative 1/2. All right, so you have to figure out how to get to this point. Once we get to this point, this is something that we've been doing now for months, right? Asking ourselves what angle has an x value, cosine, what angle has an x value of 0? Well, those would be the angles that are on the y-axis. So pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. Which angles have a negative y value of 1/2? So our reference angle for y values to be 1/2 would be pi over 6. But because we need a negative sign or negative y, we're in quadrants 3 and 4, and that's where I got 7 and 11 pi over 6. Okay, so same thing in number 2 here. Again, look in the problem for the double angle. Refer to the identity sheet, right? Substitute that out. And then at this point, once you have these two terms, take a look and try to factor, right? And in this case, we're again asking ourselves, what is the GCF? Here we're factoring out a sine. All right. We solve for each, and then it's which two angles have a y value of 0. Well, y is 0 on the x-axis, so it's 0 and it's pi. Which two angles have a positive x value of 1/2? That would be pi over 3 in quadrant 1 and 5 pi over 3 in quadrant 4. These problems are the ones that I'm going to provide on the worksheet. So I did the first 3 for you. So hopefully you either print out the worksheet or you just transfer it to your notebook. But write out these 3 problems, okay? So part of the assignment will be for you to submit the finished worksheet, the completed one, with all 5 or 6 problems. I forget how many are on there completed, okay? But I did the first 3. All right, so number 3 reads sine 2x times sine x minus cosine x. So first, use the double angle, right? This right here is double angle, so refer over here to the identity sheet, put that in the problem, and after this, I said to myself, well, okay, this is all being multiplied, this one term right here. Let me just erase that. So we have 2 terms. This is one term, this is one term. I kind of combined this first term here just to think of it a little easier. I said, all right, well, this could also be written as 2 sine squared x cosine x. And once you get beyond that, now it's thinking, okay, well, what's my GCF? What can I factor out? So both of these terms here had cosine. I took that out. 2 sine squared x minus 1 was left. I subtracted 1. I divided by 2. This one's a little different because we didn't have sine x. We had sine squared x. So I took the square root of both sides. the square root of 1/2 ends up being 1 over root 2. And then just with experience of seeing this in the past and rationalizing, I knew that this would become, if I rationalize this, is root 2 over 2. But by taking the square root of both sides, that's how I ended up with plus or minus. So not only did I have pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2, I also had all 4 angles of reference angle pi over 4. So 3 pi, 5 pi, and 7 pi over 4, because it was plus or minus. So it's the quadrants where y is positive up top and where y was negative in the bottom. All right, so that's it. Copy down those 3 problems and try the others, and that'll be your assignment for today. All right, so because we probably have one, definitely 1, maybe 2 quizzes left. As far as new material goes, this is it. This is the last assignment of new material for the year. And from here, we'll go over this. We'll review a day. We'll take a quiz. And then next week, we'll probably just do some basic solving review practice to finish out the year. Okay. So hopefully you enjoyed your weekend and you're ready to get back to some work here. So I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.